What's up guys, Giancarlo Bodoni here for another video. Today we're going to talk about back escapes, in particular body triangle escapes, and a particular body triangle escape that I think can be very useful against guys that have very long legs and are just difficult to get off of the back. I did a body triangle escape video where I went over a variation of a turning escape on BJ Fanatics a while back, and it got a lot of traction because a lot of people have issues escaping body triangles, and I did for a while as well. And what you'll find is that a lot of escapes, there's a lot of technical escapes that involve separating the legs and then getting your training partner back to more of a conventional hooks from a body triangle and then going about escaping from there. But with certain people that have very, very long legs and are able to really lock down on a body triangle on you from the back, it could take a very, very long time to get out of. And so I found that for time's sake and in terms of just overall effectiveness and just percentage-wise, like getting out, I found that turning escapes are very, very good. And so this particular escape was famously used by Tim Kennedy in an MMA fight against Roger Gracie. So this is the actual method that he used to get out of Roger's back mount, which was a pretty big feat because Roger was notorious for finishing people on the back. And he's also a very long-legged guy, so he can hold people for extended amounts of time. So we're gonna start off in a back position. And the good thing I like about turning escapes, if we turn a little bit, is with turning escapes, meaning that I'm looking to turn inside of the body triangle, okay, as opposed to trying to get out of the body triangle. I look to turn inside of it and face my opponent. The good thing that I like about turning escapes is you don't have to worry too much about what side their seatbelt is on, whether they're on the overhook side or the underhook side, or what side their body triangle is on, whether they have a full body triangle with the lock on the top hip, maybe they have a foot inside, okay, maybe they have the foot laced in, maybe they have a bottom side body triangle, okay, whatever body triangle variation or whatever seatbelt variation they have, you can use turning escapes for the most part, okay? So it's a very versatile escape, and that's one of the reasons why I like it a lot. A lot of the turning escape that I taught in the video that I mentioned involved turning away from your opponent in this direction, okay? And creating a spinning motion where your training partner is trying to chase you to regain chest to back connection. So any back escape is gonna involve me separating my back from his chest. Okay, so turning escape's no different in this aspect. For this turning escape, instead of me looking to turn inside of his body triangle away from him, I'm actually gonna look to turn into him. So instead of turning in this direction, I'm gonna look to turn into him, okay? And what I'm gonna do from here is, regardless of whether his seatbelt's on top or on bottom, that doesn't really matter, because what I wanna do is I wanna turn this into a double underhook situation. So as I have my hands in, set defensively, I'm just gonna take the time to start sneaking a hand in and punching my hand all the way through and getting to a scenario like this, okay, where he has two hands locked underneath. So this is good for a few reasons. One, it just eliminates the threat of submission. So he doesn't have an ability to strangle me now with the arms underneath. And now this enables me, okay, to start taking my body and my shoulders higher than his shoulders. So I want to take my shoulders and head higher than his head. What he wants is to keep, okay, his head, okay, in line with my head, okay? And he does that by putting this arm over the shoulder, and this makes it hard for me to move my head higher than his. So when I'm able to start threading and punching this arm through and then getting into this position where he has both of his arms underneath, yes, he has hands locked, yes, he has a good ability to control, but it enables me to be able to start bridging and pushing my body higher and higher up, okay? So it makes it a little bit harder for him to control. Now, ultimately, it's not 100% necessary, but whenever possible, if I can separate his hands, this is gonna be ideal. For this particular move, it's not 100% necessary, but it is helpful, okay? At the very least, I wanna look to take my two thumbs, put them inside of his hands, and I want to start looking to shimmy my body and the lock of his hands down low, okay? And the lower the lock of his hands, the more I'll be able to start accessing his thumb and start looking to split hands, etc., and get here, okay? Now that we're up in this position, yes, he still has a tight lock. So he still has a tight lock around my hips. It's hard for me to turn my hips inside of this body triangle. But because he doesn't have a seatbelt, and because I either
put stress on the lock of his hands or completely separated them, it enables me to turn my shoulders a lot more. So rather than escaping at the hips first, I'm escaping down at the shoulders. Now from here, with this particular escape, we talked about I'm turning inside of his body triangle, I'm turning into my opponent, as opposed to turning out and away. From here, I'm gonna use my right hand, so as I'm gonna release his hand, and I'm gonna use my right hand, and I'm gonna go like I wanna bridge in this direction. Okay, he's gonna try to lock on tight, tight, tight with this body triangle, and from here, I'm just gonna turn my shoulders, and I'm gonna look to reach all the way around my opponent's head. So I reach around, and I grab. Once I grab, now from here, I can scissor my legs, and then from here, I start turning inside of his body triangle here, okay? Now I whip my legs out and around again, and I get to this position. Now it's super important. Once I get here, I don't wanna end up in a situation where he has double underhooks on me. He can start either exposing my back, maybe he starts going in and attacking my arm here, okay? And he can start going into secondary attacks. So the second that I come out and I turn into him, I want to try as best as I can, start slipping my elbows back inside and then coming up on top in a closed guard position, okay? So he does have a body triangle, he has long legs, and I feel like I'm having a hard time separating the body triangle. So it's tough because he has this bar across my hip and he has the lock right here on the top hip. So everything's really tight. It's hard for me to square my hips to the ceiling. Okay, so from here, we're gonna find a way to start bringing our hand all the way through and punching it in so that we get double underhooks. Once he has double underhooks, not only does it take away his threat of rear nakeds, but it enables me to start bringing my head and shoulder higher than his head and shoulders, okay? So he wants, like we said, the head, his head above or in line with mine, okay? That's gonna give him better control and a better ability to hold me. So the more I can move my shoulders and head up and over his, okay, the harder it is gonna be for him to control me. And the easier it's gonna be for me to move my upper body inside of his seatbelt. Now, once I get here, I wanna start looking to not just push his hands down, but I shimmy and I shoulder walk. And I slide my body up into this position with my head down on the floor. Okay, he's gonna be doing everything he can to try to keep me down in this direction, try to pull me down. But you can see that you can walk your shoulders up and up incrementally by just wiggling your body through the lock of his hands. Now, even as he has his hands locked, from here, we just post, we start looking to reach initially over in this direction. Okay, if I just try to get to his head from here, I can't. So I have to turn by hitting a little bridge and a reach. So I reach out and away from him initially, almost like I wanted to turn this way, out and away from him. Okay, but I hit a big reach over my left shoulder. So I want to hit this nice bridge. Once I get that angle with that bridge, now it puts me in a position where when I turn my shoulders, I'm gonna have an easier time getting up and around the head. Now I reach around and I lock on the head. If he holds on to the body lock here with his hands, it's easy for me to just use this grip to scissor my legs, start coming up and around. Oftentimes, from here, he's gonna want to start fighting this hand. He's gonna want to take this hand off and start coming back and around. Okay, so the second that we come out and we get to this position, if I see him start to fight my hands, I can look to get a hold of his hand. The hands are unlocked now, so when he goes to re-lock them, try to lock a seatbelt, a body lock, he can't do it once the hands are separate and I control this hand. I scissor my legs inside one, and then now from this position, we want to turn and face our hips to his hips. Okay, now that my back is disconnected from his, it's super tough for him to recover the back in this position. The only thing he can do really is look to try to get to a mounted position, which we'll talk about in a second. But now from here, what I want to do is the second that I reach the head and I scissor my legs and I start to disentangle his body triangle, I want to immediately look to scissor my legs in this direction so that my hips face down on the floor and I push his hand out and away. From here, he wants to come on top. So I push the hand out and away and I use the grip reaching around the head to pull myself up. When we both go to get up, I can push the hand away and I can come up on top. Now, from here immediately, what I don't want to do is end up in some sort of arm war or some sort of attack here in this position. So I want to look to immediately, as I come up in this position, bring my hands inside, flip my elbows and keep my head down in the middle. So now when he goes to attack, it's tough. I control the inside space and we're looking good on top. Now, in the event, and this may happen, that your opponent does a good job. He realizes he's losing the back and he's got to maintain some sort of dominant position. We go through our whole series here. I punch everything through. We do a good job at getting our shoulders and head as high as possible. Okay, and then from here, when we go in and we hit that big reach around, we get around the head, we start circling about, circling inside of his body triangle. From here, I feel that this guy realizes I'm gonna come on top here, so he decides to start coming up and mounting. Okay, the second he goes to mount, notice what's happening here. All of his weight is on his right knee, his left knee. So he needs to start putting weight on his right knee to mount me. So as I feel that he's coming up, you'll know when he's gonna take top position. His hips are already higher than your hips, and he's starting to come up. So instead of trying to fight to come up into top position, and then I potentially end up in a worse position, if my elbow's completely out of position, I realize this guy's coming on top, and so the second that I feel that he starts coming on top, we're just gonna frame, and as I feel him driving, we just create this post, come back a little bit, and the second that I feel that his knee starts coming down towards the floor, we just hit a little bridge that takes him a little bit further out and away. Try to stay mounted. Good, and that'll allow us enough space to start bringing our knees inside and then going into our mount escapes from there. But it'll give me a little bit of an advance going into the mount escape. Okay, so something to keep in mind is that a lot of times you're not always gonna end up on top. You can in most cases, but in a lot of cases, as I come through and I do everything right and I start coming in and I start hitting that big reach around, this guy realizes, okay, at this point, he's probably gonna get out of my back control. So the second that I feel that he starts coming up and I feel like I'm not gonna be able to get on top in this scenario, okay? From here, he starts driving that knee down to the floor. I just place a frame across his hip, and as I feel that that knee's coming, we just hit a little bridge in the opposite direction, okay? Come back. It's right as his knee's coming to the floor. So as the knee's coming to the floor, we just hit that bridge and that puts him out of position. Now from here, we can start bringing our knees back inside and we can start coming out into a much better position. Okay, so either in bottom guard or on top inside of his closed guard. That was famously used by Tim Kennedy against Roger Gracie. And like I said, turning escapes, one of my favorite ways to deal with body triangles just for effectiveness, the efficiency with time, and you don't have to think too much about what side are we on. Are we on a top side body triangle, bottom side, seat belt, which side is the seat belt, et cetera, et cetera. So it's got a lot of versatility in terms of the different positions that you're in. So as opposed to turning away and creating that race where you're rolling, 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 and then looking to cut back, it's a method that I showed in a different video. This is another method that I think is really effective. And if you guys have a chance, go ahead and take a look at that match. Tim Kennedy, he used that very, very effectively to escape one of the best back attackers of all time.